A couple of weeks ago I did my very first unboxing video. It was the Drawmir MQ2. It's an equalizer and it's just an awesome unit. And I enjoyed doing that so much, and for my channel it was fairly well received. Drawmir even has suggested that they're going to put a link to my review onto their website. So I thought I would do it again. I'm rebuilding my 500 series chassis, and I wanted to change a few things up, and one of the things I needed in it was a compressor unit, and I'm trying to do everything stereo. I have two SSL channel strips, I have the MQ2, which is a stereo EQ unit, and now I have the Lindell 77X-500, and it is a stereo compressor unit. Now, this isn't my first experience with Lindell, and I'm really hoping that it goes a little bit better than the first time. See, I bought a used Lindell 7X, which is a one-channel compressor, and I bought a brand new 7X. And when I put them in and started doing some work with recording, I thought something really strange is going here, because on the used one I bought, I could hear how it was impacting the sound, what was going on. But the new one, even though the meter was going and everything, I couldn't hear any changes at all. And then when I turned the mix all the way up to full wet, I couldn't hear any sound at all coming from it. And then I realized when I backed it off, the output knob made absolutely no difference. It was unfortunately defective. So I took it back. I thought, well, I want a matched unit, and I'm not sure I want another 7X. So I, at that point in time, also sold the store the used one that I had, and I went ahead and I'm taking another chance on Lindell and getting their 77X, which is a stereo unit. So this is my unboxing video, my second unboxing video, and we're going to see how this goes. So I'll start by opening the box up. I love how Lindell here has this little piece of paper saying that they don't supply paper manuals anymore, which is kind of a little bit of a joke, because if you've ever looked at a Lindell paper manual, it doesn't really say much at all. I mean, it has the warranty information and everything, but that's about it. So their manuals really, either in online or paper form, are not particularly useful. Anyways, this is the unit, and I got it here. I'm just going to make sure we're lined up. Yeah, we're in the middle of the screen. Good. Okay, so one of the reasons why I wanted to take a chance on the Lindell is I really like this wet dry knob here. It allows you, you could really crush something, but then bring back some of the original dynamics back into the mix, and I thought this was a really great feature. The other interesting thing that's different between the 77X and the 7X is the 7X, you have a switch for the release button and for the attack buttons here. And on this one you have fully variable attack and release, which I like the idea of. It just means you spend more time fiddling with some knobs. Any review I've read said that their fixed attack and release actually is pretty good. Works well, but I wanted to be able to fiddle a little bit and adjust that. The other difference between this unit and the 7X's is it has a high pass filter. They both do. This one is off 100 and 200, whereas the 7X, it's off 100 and 300. And 300 to me really kind of seems kind of high. I mean, you're well into the higher mids of the bass range for that, and I don't know, I think 200 makes a little bit more sense to me. We'll find out. The other interesting thing, of course, if you know anything about a 1176 style, and this, they don't claim it's 1176, it is a FET compressor, but so it's that kind of style, is that it has a fixed threshold. You don't have a threshold knob on it. Instead, you determine how much, or where that line is, by how much input you give it. In other words, if you have just a little input, it'll just peak over the threshold, just compress it a little bit. If you want to crush it, just crank it all the way up. And then the next thing you know, well, it's probably distorted horribly at that point, but that's how you kind of, I guess you could say it determines the threshold, even though it's a fixed threshold. course, then the output knob isn't a make-up gain knob as much as it's if you're crushing the life out of it, you're probably going to have to make up a lot of gain. But, well, if I should be a little bit clearer, if you're turning up the input, you have a lot of output, so you're going to back up the output, which is kind of opposite what happens on a regular compressor, not on 1176. The more compression you give it, okay, the more you have to make up the gain. Where on this, the more compression you give it, the more you have to back off the output because it just distort everything. The other interesting thing about this is that it has, what's the Melcore preamp in it, which is supposed to be one of the great preamps pre-API. So it'll be interesting to hear how it colors the sound. So this is the unit itself. I'm now going to put it in my chassis, and then we'll talk just a little bit more. So we'll just grab my 500 chassis. So the 1176 style compressors are supposed to be quote-unquote colorful. One of the things that the Drawmere is supposed, the Lindell is supposed to add, like the Drawmere, is some harmonic distortion. So it has some transformers in there that you can overdrive and create some distortion at some level. I've seen where people have reviewed where they've actually cranked the thing, plugged their electric guitar through it, and gotten some great sounding distortion. The Drawmere is much more subtle than that. It adds harmonics based on where you set the EQs on it, but you can't do that kind of full-blown distortion that you might hear on an electric guitar. So this is my rack all done. A pair of SSL 6 channels, Drawmere EQ, and the Lindell 77X compressor. And this would be kind of the order that I would go through with them. EQ before compression, though it's certainly easy enough to reverse those two. You could go from these into the compressor, into the EQ, depending upon what you need to accomplish. So that's what we're doing right now. We're going to demo this and see what it sounds like. So thank you so much for hanging into this point. Okay, so let's take a look at the Lindell 77X-500. Compressing drums. I think this is the most popular thing people like to see. I will also be doing bass and acoustic guitar. What's happening here is I do not have a drum kit. I do not play drums. So this is Easy Drummer 3 coming out through a bus into the SSLs. The SSLs are strictly here just to give us some level and feed into the Lindell. Right now the compressor's off, but if we turn it on, we should start to see something immediately. It amazes me how much impact the compression can have on drums, and I can see why people like to hear that demoed on drums. So right at the moment it's a lot of compression. We can back off. As you know, a 1176 style compressor has a fixed threshold. In order to get more compression, you have to turn up the input. And you can see when you do that, it certainly does. And lost some level there. Okay, so that's ridiculous. Let's back it off. Okay. So let's just aim for somewhere around, I don't know, maybe hitting 10 occasionally. Okay. See if we got, no, we need to bring up the level a little. Okay, right now I have it on the fastest attack and release. If I back off on the attack, okay, and if I back off on the release, whoa. Oh, when you back off on the release, it really compresses a lot. And let's see, we need to back off on the attack. At that point, it's not compressing anything at all. It's just too slow to hit those transients. So if you take that up, maybe back off there. Right now I have it set for the high pass filter off and a ratio of 4:1, and I have it fully wet. That's fully dry, and that's fully compressed, somewhere in between. So you could really squish this thing and then bring back a little bit of the transients. You can hear them really saturating the transformer at this point. So let's go back to something a little bit more normal at this point. Okay. That's pretty close. Okay. So if we do the high pass filter, and just take up this channel a little bit more. So you can see with it off, it's tending to compress a bit more. Except those hits on that snare. Yeah, the snare is really driving it at this point. Hear that. Listen to the kick. So at 100, you let the kick through it really, and at 200, it really comes through. So if you really, whoa, that's just so much, it's killing it. So if you really love kick, just turn up that high pass filter, and it really brings it out. Now let's squish it. Let's go 12:1. Let's put this at 100. Let's see. Maybe let's take the level down a little. Whoa, I'm just overloading it entirely, eh? Listen to it, guys. I mean, nobody's going to squish it that much anyways. That's better. So put 100:1, all in. Again, we'll have to back it off a little bit because that's just ridiculous. Now, if you really squish it, you can bring back some of the dynamics, eh? that's just a little ridiculous. I could see 12 to 1 though. So by using the release and the attack, you can control how much you're really going to compress this, besides driving the input. I have it set up stereo, so that's why you'll see different amounts on each side. I love how that brings out the kick, eh? I think probably the snare and the mix should have been turned down a little bit. But anyways, you could always EQ that or something earlier in the game. Now let's go for this full saturation. At that point, you're just blowing it up. Well, that's ugly. But it could be really interesting in something, eh? It's a very aggressive compressor, and you can see it doesn't take a lot to really have it maybe compress more than you should. You can get into trouble with this compressor. On the other hand, it really brings out things like the snare and the kick, depending upon how you have the high pass filter and how much you want it to compress, and where you set your release and your attack time. And it's always nice to be able to bring back some of the original signal to it. Oh, there you go. A very, very compressed drum kit. You can obviously do some compression on it without. Quite transparent and still achieve a result. Okay, that's it for the drum kit. Now we'll move on to acoustic guitar and to the bass. Okay, so now we're going to look at recording acoustic guitar through a compressor. Now, I recognize that there's a lot of discussion about whether you should even use a compressor to record acoustic guitar, or whether you just let it go in and then deal with it later. A lot of people, though, will take a little bit of the top end off, just 3, 5 dB, just gentle kind of compression. You don't want to compress it too much because you want to have something to work with later. How I recorded it was, I used 2 microphones, an Aston Spirit on the right channel and a Lewitt 140 on the left channel. I recorded them without any high-pass filtration, because at the time I recorded it was to test the draw mirror, and I wanted to be able to have the best idea of how the EQ, especially the 50 and 130 hertz, worked. I'm going to put the high-pass filter on now because, and I'll take it off while we're testing it, because you'll see that this really compresses a lot when that bottom end rumble is in there. There's no EQ though on this and no compression on this. So basically the signal comes in, set the levels, and then a little bit of high pass filtration so that the compressor isn't working too hard. So we'll turn on the compressor. Now you can hear a difference there right away. I have it set pretty much for unity gain, but the attack is, I think, way too fast, and what tends to happen then at that point is it does add some distortion. So we'll back off the attack a little bit. Okay. Let some of the transients through. I have the fully wet. You can hear that's fully dry. That's 50-50 of each, which means I'd have to take that back a little bit. And that's fully compressed. Now, I have it set to a 4:1 ratio because, again, you only want to take a little bit off and you want to do it fairly gently. You could squish the life out of it, but it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So we won't even worry about the 12:1 or 100:1 ratios. If we back off on the release, you can see if we back the release off totally, it's really not doing a lot to it. Could increase the input side and back off the output to get it more even. You can really hear the, shall we say, the harmonics saturation on this. It's pretty aggressive. I think just a little bit of so by adding just a little bit of the dry signal and just letting it take off the worst of my very aggressive at times playing. Again, as I said at the beginning, you want to be pretty gentle about what you're doing here. Take too much off, you don't have anything to work with. Now, if I was a little bit more consistent in my playing, then probably we could have a situation where it's hanging in around here more and it isn't really driving too much. That's nice though. I like that. I think that takes a little bit of the edge off. Now, as I said earlier, if we take off the high pass filter, you can see it compresses way more because that low driving stuff. And don't confuse the effect of a high pass filter with this kind of high pass filter. Okay, this is removing that low rumbling sound before it hits the compressor. If you leave it in here, what it does is it lets the low rumbling stuff pass so that it doesn't compress as much. See what happens? See how much it's compressing there? And it's compressing a lot less because we're letting the 100 stuff through. But that means we're letting the rumbly stuff through. If we take all that bottom stuff out then, you get more even compression because it's only compressing the high stuff. And we don't want that low stuff in anyways, so we're better off taking it out. Now again, you could, because this has a fixed threshold, you could really drive it. So if you're looking for something with a lot of saturation, not sure why. I mean, you could do something like this where you really drive it, a lot of saturation there, but you mix some of the dry signal back in. If you're looking for something fairly aggressive, you put in the high pass filter. That's a little bit too vicious. Or if you squished it. Saturate the transformer without any compression at all. Okay, gives you an idea of what you can do with an acoustic guitar by gently taking some of the peaks off to really squishing it a lot. So let's move. Okay, so now we're going to try out the compressor on the bass. Just to let you know, what I've done is I've recorded a bass loop into a ditto, and then it's coming out of the ditto into the SSL. And it's coming into the SSL for two reasons. One, because it has the ability to convert that high Z signal into something that can go through the box. And second of all, just to adjust the input level so that it's something reasonable. You can see it's hitting 0 once in a while, but that's it. No EQ, no compression, which of course, if I put in compression, that kind of defeat the purpose of testing the compressor. My bass playing isn't great, but I did try to give a full range from the low E up to the E at the 12th fret, so hopefully that makes a difference here in trying to hear what this thing's going to do. Okay, so right now the compressor is out of the circuit. I'm going to put it into the circuit. Now we can hear it's a little bit louder, so I'll turn down the output, see if we can get that balanced. Okay, that's good. You can see right away it's knocking about 5 to 6 dB off. So if we turn down the input and then turn the output up, peaking maybe at 4 dB, except for that last note. So what's going on with this is that you have a fixed threshold. So the more I crank up the input, the more it's going to push it above the threshold so that it compresses more of the signal. So if I crank this up and then turn that down, let's just, okay, so now you can see it's compressing it. Boy, it's peaking about 7. Oh, it hit 20 dB there. That's a lot of compression. So let's back it off. We'll get it down just a little bit off the top. Because if we're recording into the system, we don't want to take too much off. We don't want to compress it too much because we can always add some compression later on in the mix. And it might be a little bit louder, eh? So we'll just take that up a little bit. Okay, so just a moderate amount of compression here. Now, at the moment I have it all wet. You can back it off. Now that's all dry. Okay, so that's the original signal coming in and going right through, not compressed at all. Now, with this little bit of compression, you're probably not going to hear a lot of difference. You can hear it actually, can't you? Yeah, you can hear it take the edge off of that. So that's actually, wow, that's cool. So it means you can really, you can squish the life out of it. Let's squish the life out of it. Down the output a little, and then bring some back in. So you can still catch the string attack and also have the compressed signal, so you can maintain the dynamics of it. I'm still going to back this off, something a little more reasonable. I'm going to put it fully wet so that we can hear that. Okay, I've got that a little loud. Okay, so the cool thing about this particular unit is that I can vary the attack completely, and I can vary the release. So right now it's set at the fastest attack and release, but let's back that off a little so we can Now, I'll confess to a little bit of confusion here because the labels say that this is the fastest attack, okay, and the fastest release. On 1176, it is the opposite, right? And there's confusion over whether this was mislabeled. I'm going to assume the labeling is correct. Okay, because if you look here, it's not compressing anything at all. It's slow, but I crank it up to fast. So at the slowest, it's rarely coming on. At the fastest, it's showing more. I'm going to compress it a bit more just to make sure that we can hear this. So if I back off the attack, if I back off the release, whoa, okay, you can hear the difference at that point, eh? Listen to this, okay, it's releasing right away. It's taking forever to release. I don't know. That does seem backwards to me. It seems like it's letting everything through there. I might agree with those guys that it seems backwards. But this would be truly how an 1176 works. Fastest attack, fastest release, fully clockwise, slowest attack, slowest release, fully counterclockwise. But the labeling doesn't say that. Okay, well that's interesting. Let's put everything at mid for the moment. I can hear more attack when it's in the slowest. Maybe the theory is it's, I don't know, yeah. No, see, when I have it all the way turned up, it seems to scrunch the, the attack a little. In the slow setting, it seems to let more attack through, so I'd say that's correct. So then, if this is the fastest released, I don't know, I'm confused. But what I do know is that I like a little bit of that still coming through. Okay, so let's look down here, ratios and stuff. So it's at 4:1. If I take it up to 12:1, we'll set this midway. There's 4:1. Let's squish it a bit more so that we can hear it. Okay. 4:1. 12:1. And there's 100:1. She really squishes it, eh? That's the all-in theory, I think, of the 1176. Okay, we'll take it back to 4:1 here. Now we're going to look at the high-pass filter. So it's set for 100 and 200. This should make a difference. Here we go. Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm just using one channel, so this is the meter to watch, the left. I'm not sure why the right shows stuff. And then 200. So we'd have to back it down. So obviously at 200 and 100, it's not squishing the bottom as much, so it's letting more of the top through. Sounds richer, eh? As you turn on that high pass filter. Yeah, you can hear a little more bottom end there. Okay, so that's with the high pass filter. Again with the ratio. Start to hear that transformer is starting to add, shall we say, saturation or distortion, if you'd like. So this is one of the apparently selling points of the Lindell 77X, is the fact that you can saturate the transformer, but you usually do that. Let's take some of that bass out. I think it's a little bit much. And we crank that up. And how you do that is you overload the output. So you could back up here. So there it's not compressing anything at all, eh? Now we back off this way. Completely dry. There's completely wet. You can hear the distortion coming in. To me that sounds a little farty. I think that gives us an idea of what this can do. It obviously can compress quite well, and you certainly have a lot of control over whether you want just a little bit or want to totally squish the thing. Okay, I think that gives us an idea of what this can do with the bass. So I just finished all my tests, running drums, acoustic guitar, and bass through the Lindell 77X-500. And I've learned a few lessons and I have a few observations to make. One of the things I discovered fairly quickly is I'm not sure I know what I'm doing. I mean, I really made a mess of some of it, and I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind with compression. Compression can really bring out the glory of a piece of music, or it can destroy it. And it depends on how much and what you do with it. And the Lindell is a little bit of a complex compressor when you think about it, because it has variable attack and release. It has the input and output control. And of course, the input is connected in many ways to the threshold because it has a fixed threshold. You have to use the input to drive how much you want to compress it. But it also has the high-pass filters, and it has the ability to mix in some of the original, well, all of the original dry signal. And of course, it has 3 ratio settings. So between all of those and how they interact with each other, you can really create something very nice, or you can make a real mess of it. I was amazed at how much the release knob affects how much it compresses. It makes a big difference on that unit. The other thing to really keep in mind is your source signal. So for example, the guitar I'd recorded without high-pass filters because I was using that to test an EQ. Well, I needed to put the high-pass filters on my SSLs because that low frequency energy was really distorting how the compressor was reacting to the signal. And of course, you don't use the high-pass filter on the compressor because that's really just letting the low signal through without compressing it, so it doesn't impact the compression, but it means all that rumble goes through. So it's really, really important when you are recording to make sure you EQ. EQ early in the game. Make sure you're getting the best sounding signal that you can, and one that is not going to affect the compressor in ways that are not useful for you. So if I'm going to summarize it up, compression is awesome, but you can really make a mess of things, and it's really important to make sure you have the best signal possible going in. So it was fun playing around with this. I'm looking forward to using it in different situations in that, as a bus compressor, but also as I record in moderate amounts. So thank you for taking the time to listening to this all the way to the end. If you like my channel, please subscribe. Everybody knows that subscriptions are really important and it makes a difference. If you liked this video, then press that like button because that makes a difference too. And if you have any comments, please, I'd be interested in hearing what was good or bad about this, how I could have done this better, or maybe I should have never done it at all. But thank you so much for watching this video.